Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are here for the third game tonight for the World Cup of Pokemon, hosted, of course, by Victory Road and sponsored by Elgato. My name's Ben Kiriakou. I'm joined here by, I'm going to get it right this way, Costa Dynamos. Costa, what did you think of that last match?
I'll tell you what, it was very quick, but it was definitely quick, because I felt like I was all prepped for my first match, and then, like, it was done. Of course, I think it was just a show and tell of essentially a bad matchup, and where one side didn't have the necessary answers to try to reply to another side. So matchup-wise, I think Quang just was able to go ahead and just dominantly just sweep through Nico's team, because Nico just didn't have a solid option there. Sure, Nico could have gone maybe for one or two different turns there, but in the end of the day, Quang had a team that was so well thought out that essentially you need to try to have a spread move to go up against that team, but then you've got the main Mind Chow, which of course has the Wide Guard. So you got a lot of mind games going on there, and I really respect that team. It's hard Trick Room, but it really carried that flow there, and I was very impressed.
Yeah, it was great. Not often do you see a match where I think Calyrex Ice Rider got all 8 KOs in the match, which is crazy. It showcased how strong that Pokemon is. But speaking of strong Pokemon, and of course the strong trainers that are using those Pokemon, we're going to be jumping into the player profiles for the two players that we're going to be featuring, one from Colombia, one from Taiwan. That's going to be Felipe Campos versus Chien-Chien Tsai, and really excited to see what's going to be coming out here.
Well, really are. Of course, this is going to be the first match between these two countries, so we don't have any previous results or teams that we could go ahead and check out right now. So it's very exciting. You see who is up against who between Colombia and Taiwan, and we are going to start off with Chien-Chien Tsai, representing Taiwan, of course, rocking the Zacian Thunderous Incarnate, which you don't see as often, Incineroar, Rillaboom, Galarian Moltres, and why did I say that you don't see Thundurus as often? That Dracovish, Ben, is something you definitely don't see in this format at the moment.
No, definitely not. I like this little combination with maybe something like a Scary Face or a Thunder Wave coming out from that Thundurus being with its Prankster ability to power up those vicious Wrens that come out from Dracovish, something that we saw so early on in this generation of Pokemon, and it does so much damage. So there's going to be some explosive turns, I feel, coming out from this game. Chien-Chien having quite a lot of accomplishments to his name as well. Top 8 from the World Championships in the senior division in 2015, just like one of our other competitors today. 4 times in the World Championships, and of course runner-up in regional championships in their region, the Oceania region, 5 times. That's 5 times. Wow. They've just got to the final, not managed to convert it, but they've still got there. They've played in all of those competitions. So really excited to see how they come out with very consistent, strong-looking archetype.
Yeah, and of course that was Chien's matchup. We're going to go over to their opponent right now. Of course, representing Colombia, we do have Felipe Campos rocking the second Lunala of today's stream. I am very excited to see this. Very similar composition as well with regards to the team. You've got the Fire, Water, Grass Scroll there, the Incineroar, Tapu Fini, Rillaboom, double terrain there actually, worth noting, as well as the Stakataka, Regieleki, the 2 ends of absolute speed when it comes to all the tiering in VGC. You've got Stakataka, the slowest. You've got Regieleki, the fastest, naturally.
Yeah, the fastest by far. I will have to see if this game is fast like Regieleki or slow like a Stakataka.
Yeah.
But Felipe, a couple of times at World Championships, we're going to see how they are able to match up against Chien. We are viewing it from Chien's side of the field, so we're going to see the Zacian here versus that Lunala on Felipe's side.
Yeah, so quite interesting. The Galarian Moltres, it is worth noting that I think there's a Sulfest there, so I haven't seen this set actually run quite often recently, where it essentially acts like a pseudo Evoltel in a way, Ben, where essentially you don't need to waste that slot for a restricted, right? You can get just like Chien has done right here, as we're seeing it from their perspective. Just have a Zacian, and then you go ahead and get your counters for Calyrex Shadow, as well as maybe some Tornado teams where you have additional bulk when it comes to the special defensive side.
Certainly, and in this matchup specifically, that Lunala is definitely going to have to watch out for that Galarian Moltres, otherwise known sometimes in the community, certainly I know it as Budget Yveltal, for, you know, when you want an Yveltal on your team, but you want something else in that restricted slot, and that Pokemon is a Zacian, so yeah, that's going to be a really key interaction here, and Xien's going to have to try and find a way around that to make sure that he can make most use out of his team.
Well, yeah, exactly that, as we're going to be seeing Felipe bringing out the Regieleki and Incineroar on their side of the field, whilst Chien is actually going to be running with an Incineroar of their own. But guess what? The Dracovish is here making an appearance in Game 1.
Yeah, one of the better water types for facing down a Regieleki. Having that part dragon typing is going to stop it from taking as much damage from Regieleki's really powerful electric attacks. Of course, we saw those Intimidates come out onto the field. It's going to affect Dracovish, but not the Regieleki, and these fake outs may be traded. No psychic terrain for either player, so you know you've got that sort of trade of speed, a trade of fake outs, and maybe some pivoting going on as a first fake out comes out from Xien's side of the field. And a second.
Second indeed, which means other than the fake outs, we will not be seeing anything going on in turn 1, as of course they were able to fake out the partners of the other nemesis there. So essentially a stalemate of a turn, but though to be honest, it's more important for Chien's side, I'd say, since if there is a focus sash on the Regieleki, it's not there anymore.
No, it's certainly not, and maybe a turn for pivoting here. The Regieleki doesn't really pick up too much damage on the Dracovish, certainly not if it goes for a protect.
Ooh, as we did see the Regieleki trying to target down that slot. That may have been a Volt Switch like you had mentioned for that pivot action, Ben, but we're going to be seeing Chien go for that pivot action of their own. The parting shot will be going into the Regieleki and dropping its both attack and special attack down to -1, allowing Chien to bring that Rillaboom in, actually, once again threatening with Fake Out in the following turn. So I am actually interested to see if we're going to be seeing the exact same thing come out from the Incineroar. And yes, we get the confirmation. Rillaboom's attack has been dropped. Felipe now has that position where they could go ahead and try to bring a Pokemon in, maybe that could counteract that Rillaboom the following turn.
You know, it's almost, if the grassy terrain wasn't on the field, you may be able to get to this situation where, you know, all the damage is fake out, and maybe these Pokemon are just going to be switching around fake out, switch around fake out. Maybe that's how this Regieleki is going to go down, but Lunala coming in for Felipe, not going to propagate that, and the Dracovish is going to have an opportunity to attack now if it wants to. Of course, it has already been intimidated. If Felipe does bring in another Intimidate, certainly would be a good move to do to drop the attack even further of that Rillaboom, especially while the Regieleki is under threat of Grassy Glide, should I say. But of course that Lunala on the field is looking very threatening.
It really is. Felipe opts to bring the Incineroar in, wants to get that Intimidate drop both onto the Rillaboom and that Dracovish, which could actually prove to be quite detrimental to any potential calculations that Chien had taken into consideration. But no, Chien actually opts to switch out the Dracovish and bring their own Incineroar back in on the field. They haven't been gone for long. They've come back. This is essentially that Incineroar role that we've been talking about. It is so good and used throughout the meta in general. And Chien actually going for the U-turn onto that Lunala slot. That may not look like a lot of damage, ladies and gents, but the important action of that was to try to break that Shadow Shield, which would have halved all damage dealt onto that slot when it is at full HP, allowing now the Lunala to just go ahead, get a Trick Room up. Oh wait, and the grass terrain looks like it may have just healed it back up to 100%.
Yeah, just that U-turn with the parting shot, or after the parting shot and the Intimidate wasn't enough to really just make sure that Lunala was outside of its Shadow Shield range being full. The Trick Room going up, though, is pretty important. That Dracovish is probably going to be going before, now after the Incineroar on Felipe's side of the field. And now the question being is how the Incineroar and Lunala stack up between Chien and Felipe, and of course whether we see that Meteor Beam that we saw earlier coming out and just making that Lunala an absolute powerhouse.
Really is, as we're going to be seeing the Incineroar now opting to go for the Fake Out, trying to beat the opposing Incineroar to it. And yes, the Meteor Beam is going to be coming out from this Lunala, powered of course by that Power Herb, which means the +1 special attack and the fact that this Pokemon will now be attacking is possible. But wait, that may have just... Oh my lord, what's going on right here? We see a Vicious Rend coming out first from the Dracovish onto that Incineroar, and yes, I think the Meteor Beam actually missed, Ben.
Yeah, it looked like that was the case, and Vicious Rend is important to note that it's still quite a powerful move, and of course that Dracovish with the pivoting that Chien made wasn't actually intimidated, so Felipe took the full brunt of that with his Incineroar in trade for stopping the Rillaboom on Chien's side of the field from moving. Now that Stack Attacker comes in, though, it is going to be putting an enormous amount of pressure onto Chien's side of the field with some powerful gyro balls, followed up probably by some big 1+ attacks from Lunala.
Yeah, as we see Chien bringing the Incineroar in right now, wanting to try to capitalize off of that momentum as best as possible. We'll be dropping the attack of that Stack Attacker there, threatening potentially the Lunala. The following turn, we see the Fake Out coming out from the Rillaboom, targeting that Stack Attacker. It will not be moving at all. And the signature move of Moongeist Beam comes out, and at +1 deals very respectable amounts of damage onto an Incineroar, which is not only bulky, it is resisting that Ghost typing.
Yeah, and carrying that leftovers alongside the grassy terrain is going to heal it up quite a bit. But now Felipe's in this great position where he's got both of his Pokemon on the field. That Lunala can't be faked out. It did so much damage to the Incineroar on the switch-in, and now we're in a position where Felipe can just, maybe if he's got access to Body Press, pick up a knockout on that Incineroar if the Incineroar doesn't go for a fake out onto the Stack Attacker. But that means that the Lunala is completely free to just launch another Moongeist Beam into Chien's side of the field. So Chien's maybe got the Fake Out available, but that Fake Out is only stopping what looks like the inevitable here.
As we're going to be seeing Grass Glide coming out, targeting that Lunala, breaking the Shadow Shield from working Body Press comes out from the Stack Attacker. Isn't quite enough to pick up the KO onto the Incineroar, which means, yes, it will get the KO off onto that Lunala, which was, of course, ×4 weak to all Dark-type moves that this Incineroar has ready for it.
Yeah, and that's, really great training there from Chien on his Incineroar. Played that confidently, knew that that was an opportunity. Looks like Trick Room just ended there as well, so Felipe, now with Lunala being knocked out, is going to have to go a little bit to the drawing board, and just proves that Chien didn't actually need that Galarian Moltres in order to knock out the Lunala. It was Incineroar all along that was the game plan, and certainly Chien was scared of that Regieleki that's just come back onto the field, being able to do massive damage to that Moltres on Chien's side of the field. Of course, with both Fake Out Pokemon available now, even though that Stack Attacker can still go for a Trick Room again if it wants to, that's going to be problematic for Felipe having his Regieleki on the field. So that Stack Attacker is likely to be the Pokemon that goes last for the remainder of the game. And unfortunately, that's going to mean that the Chien's Pokemon in the back are going to have to, or it's going to have to get past Chien's Pokemon in the back.
Yeah, as we're going to be seeing the Dracovish now coming in for the Rillaboom. Rillaboom wants to switch out so it can have the Grass Terrain and Fake Out for a future turn. The Rillaboom is going to the Incineroar, apologies, is just going to survive from the Rock Slide of the Stack Attacker. We're still in Trick Room, and Flare Blitz It's going to be more than enough to pick up a KO there onto that leftovers Incineroar, which we should have mentioned, and we didn't. I don't know why. I thought it was just the grass terrain, which means, of course, Felipe will just be down to their final Pokemon.
Yeah, indeed. It looks like it was the grassy terrain leaving the field that we noticed there. Unfortunately, can't read the language that's on the screen at all, so we're just going by our eyes here. And yeah, either way, I mean, that with Fake Out coming out from Rillaboom, if Trick Room's not going to be ending this turn, it's going to be ending next turn, and that Dracovish looks like it's in a quite handy position to be able to pick up a quick knockout on the stack attacker, take this game out 1 to Chien and none to Felipe.
Exactly, as we did say, I think the Trick Room did end that turn as the Dracovish did move first there. But of course, that did not matter, essentially due to the fact that the Fake Out and Vicious Rend pressure was always there to quickly dispatch of that stack attacker, which is, of course, weak to it. So, I'm not sure. There was a lot of different situations going on there, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, Chien was able to play very, very well, be able to take advantage and gain momentum, keep it going for their side. When Felipe started losing that momentum, that Meteor Beam miss, it was a bit bad, you know, because it's still a lot of damage that they could have got off onto Chien's team, but weren't able to do so because we didn't even know which slot it was trying to target there.
Well, indeed, I think, you know, the pivotal turn is where the stack attacker wasn't able to pick up the knockout on Incineroar, and that really allowed the the Incineroar to pick up a knockout on the Lunala, and once the Lunala's left the field, it's really difficult for for Felipe to do anything about any of the remaining Pokemon on Chien's side of the field. So yeah, really quite a difficult matchup, and I think, you know, the adjustment here is maybe to just be a little bit more confident in that Galarian Moltres and see if you can just really go for it in this game and pick up a clean 2-0 game and not have to go to a game 3.
Yeah, it really does, because I think that leftovers, of course, paying dividends on the Incineroar there, because it would not have survived that Rock Slide from the stack attacker if it weren't for that constant residual HP it was able to regain with every turn, accompanied by that grass terrain. But Ben, the I was gonna call it Evotel now, the Galarian Moltres, it's on the field on Chien's side, accompanied by the Rillaboom versus Felipe's Regieleki and the Incineroar.
Yeah, and again, we've got conflicting Fake Outs here, but Rillaboom likely to be faster than the Incineroar, so it will be down to Chien to decide on whether to stop that Regieleki from doing damage to Moltres, or indeed stop the Incineroar stopping the Moltres from doing some stuff to the Regieleki in return. Could just see a little bit of a switch out going on. Of course, Rillaboom is very good at dispatching Regieleki with that Grassy Glide, especially in terrain. So here we just see a Fake Out into Incineroar. Chien not minding taking a little bit of damage, but it is that Volt Switch going into the Rillaboom, so no damage on Moltres this turn.
No damage at all, of course. Assault Vest, I was going to call it Evotel again, Ben. I don't know what's happening. Galarian Moltres is not something you commonly see. It is directly threatened by the Regieleki. You would have expected a Protect there, but it does not have it. It goes for the Fiery Wrath. Will be able to deal a good bit of chip damage onto that stack attacker, but then stack attacker, I feel, is a good switch in for Felipe here.
Yeah, I think chip damage is definitely apt in this situation. That Fiery Wrath did not do a lot of damage, and of course, with the grassy terrain, there is going to be a little bit of recovery for that stack attacker. So if Felipe wants to set up a Trick Room here, there's really not a lot that can be done to stop him by Chien's side of the field, and I think that's really important. Other than Fiery Wrath getting the flinch here, and now it looks like that's what Chien's going for.
Yeah, Chien's going for it. Let's see if they're able to go ahead and get it off, as we're going to be seeing the U-turn coming out from the Rillaboom, targeting down the Incineroar, dealing a bit of damage over time. You need to be able to do that to Incineroar so you don't allow it to have those free switch-ins, because you know it's always going to go for that pivot there. As Chien's going to be bringing their own Incineroar, dropping the attack of both the opposing Incineroar and the stack attacker to -1, so they do not deal as much damage on their side of the field too. And there we go. There we have it, Ben. The parting shot comes out from Incineroar. Incineroar doing what Incineroar does, dropping the Moltres' special attack now to -1, but more importantly, maybe bringing that Lunala in right now.
Yeah, it could be Lunala. Kind of expect the stack attacker to be going for Trick Room here. But it is the Regieleki, so maybe we're just seeing an attack coming out from the stack attacker, and it is that body press, just putting that damage onto Incineroar that's just come in. I quite like that play, actually, really trying to use the Regieleki to good effect, and definitely isn't able to do that during the Trick Room condition. Of course, stack attacker sitting there really nice and pretty, can take a few more hits and will have an opportunity to Trick Room later if that's something that Felipe wants to do. So right now it's about taking damage, and of course we saw the Rock Slide from last game. That is going to be good against both the Moltres and the Incineroar on Felipe Chien's side of the field, and now that parting shot's come out onto Moltres, you're not so worried about doing damage to Moltres and activating that Berserk ability, taking it down below half of its health, because you've already done the appropriate move to stop it going to 1+. Instead, it'll go just back to neutral.
As we're going to be seeing the Incineroar, it is switching out for the Rillaboom. Once again, we see fake out pressure on Chien's side, and very good resist to any grass types, any electric type moves coming that way. But no, we see the Regieleki just opt to go for the Thunderbolt, nearly picking up the KO on Moltres, but not being able to quite do so, proccing the Berserk there, bring the Moltres back to neutral, and able to deal good damage up to both the stack attacker, the Regieleki as well. And we do see yet again another body press from the stack attacker. It doesn't want to go for Trick Room just yet, since of course the Regieleki is still on the field, and it is the fastest thing as well.
Yeah, I really like that play, and Grassy Glide will knock out the Regieleki from this range for sure. But you've done what you needed to do with that Thunderbolt coming out on the Moltres. You've taken it to low health, and that's something that's really crucial when you're playing against Galarian Moltres, because it is such a bulky Pokemon. Now, take your pick on attacks from Regieleki or from Stack Attacker. Rock Slide could come out, pressure Incineroar on the switch in. You could do it with a Gyro Ball, you could do it with a Body Press. It doesn't really matter now. That Moltres is going down for the count, and that means that maybe now is the time to set up Trick Room, get that Lunala on the field, and it doesn't matter if it's a Moongeist Beam or anything else. That the main source of dealing with the Lunala can be knocked out very easily.
And Felipe bringing in the perfect Pokemon for this situation, resists both Galarian Moltres and the Rillaboom, whilst being able to get that Intimidate off onto the Rillaboom. But we see the Zacian switching in now for the Moltres too, and it still has its Intrepid Sword activation there, meaning it will be keeping its +1 of attack right there, even if it is up against the Fake Out from Incineroar. So Felipe does still have options on their side of the field, so they could maybe counteract Chien's situation here, even potentially get a Trick Room up, seeing Zacian on the field.
Yeah, I think Trick Room's probably the right move here. It depends if that Zacian has access to Substitute or not. We've seen that already today. A really good way of just slowing down people using their Trick Room modes, keep Zacian on the field and cycle those fake outs. But Zacian not wanting to stay on the field, I think that's probably a good play, especially with no substitute, or if there's no substitute available, should I say. And Incineroar just coming in to make sure that that Stack Attacker can only go for Body Press as an offensive move.
Yeah, as we're going to be seeing the Incineroar trying to go and target down that Zacian. It was actually switched in right there. You want to try to get that Intimidate pressure going once again. So pivot play right now and hard switches is really, really good for Chien's side, because right there we saw the U-turn from the Rillaboom, which means, yes, the Zacian is back on the field right now. It's back in business, and there is no fake out to try to go ahead and flinch it, at least for this turn. But wait, we see the Trick Room now being set up, which means Zacian is the slowest thing on the field.
It certainly is, but again, we're in this position where the Incineroar wants to fake out the Stack Attacker on Felipe's side of the field, and if it doesn't, the Body Press comes out, and Body Press isn't affected by all of these Intimidates. There's a really good move that the stack attacker has available to it. Of course, that Incineroar on Felipe's side of the field can start to pressure the Zacian with some flare blitzes if it wants to. Don't actually think it matters too much if the Incineroar on Felipe's side of the field goes down. Just getting that damage onto Zacian so that Lunala can come out later and knock it out with a single Moongeist beam is probably more important to Felipe's side of the field, and Jen has to tiptoe around, I think, this Trick Room set and see if he can find a way to pivot his Pokemon around and try to either get to the end of the Trick Room or to be in a position where he can just attack in Trick Room.
Yeah, so we see the switching game still going strong, essentially, from Felipe's side at this moment. Rillaboom does switch in, which means, yes, threatening Fake Out immediately after. Taking that Fake Out right there is so good for a switch in from Felipe. And the Body Press comes out, just misses the KO, the Incineroar living on 2 HP, and the Stack Attacker being hardly punished for it from a close combat one-shot of the Zacian right there. Has dropped its defense and special defense, but it has absolutely capitalized and put Chien in a good position to finally get rid of that mode.
Yeah, that Stack Attacker leaving the field is pretty vital. Stack Attacker is one of those Pokemon that's really quite difficult to knock out if you don't have the right tools, and Close Combat is one of those tools, so really well played there from Chien finding that opening. Incineroar coming in for Felipe will probably mean that we've got some pivoting action going on. 2 Fake Outs available from Felipe, so opportunity for Rillaboom to go for the Fake Out onto Incineroar on Shen's side of the field, while the Incineroar on Felipe's side of the field can pressure the Zacian. Without Intimidate, it will do a lot of damage with Fake Out, but looking at that HP number on Shen's side of the field, unlikely that it would be able to pick up the KO. With a Close Combat, it definitely would be. So Moltres coming in, maybe sacking it, and a Protect coming out from that Zacian to maybe look to reset some Fake Out pressure.
Yeah, so solid positional gameplay from Chien's side right now. They thought, okay, that sack right there of the Delirium Moltres is vital because, of course, it's not that useful at the moment, seeing as Chien still does have Incineroar to try to counteract the Lunala. Not even talking about the Zacian. Zacian's still there too, which is such a powerhouse of its own respect. But the Incineroar, even if it is at low HP, it now does have the Fake Out pressure, and it still is being utilized to its maximum by getting those Intimidate drops onto Felipe's Pokemon.
Yeah, we've got a couple more turns of Trick Room left here, so a little bit of Fake Out pressure going on to Felipe's side of the field is definitely welcome for Chien. There's only one Pokemon on Felipe's side of the field at the moment that can do damage to the Zacian, and that is that Incineroar. So Regieleki coming in to take an attack probably here, and it definitely takes the Fake Out quite well. But it looks like that Incineroar is returning to the field.
Returning to the field indeed via its good old partner Rillaboom, as we've seen during Series 10, of course. The Regieleki being on the field right now means that there is Fake Out pressure from this Incineroar. More crucially, it is able to get those attack drops onto Chien's Pokemon. Felipe is still not out of this, even if they have lost the Stack Attacker. They do have the faster Pokemon, but wait, they don't anymore because it just got KO'd from that Close Combat Zacian. Even if it had lower defenses there, it was still in a position where it wasn't directly threatened and it could go for just damage, and that is exactly what it did. So we saw damage coming out from Chien's side in game 1 being that Dracovish, and now we see the Zacian has been preferred, and it has been absolutely phenomenal for Chien's side. 4 versus 2 right now.
4 versus 2 and 3 versus 2. In fact, the Moltres going down in the last turn. And now it's really just a case of resetting that Zacian for Chien. Once that gets onto the field for free in any way, shape or form, it's going to be a really nice time. Close Combat will definitely be able to knock out the Incineroar from that range, and Rillaboom doesn't usually carry too many moves that is able to really cleanly dispatch a Zacian on its own. So it's really down to Chien to see how he wants to pivot around. Maybe switch out the Zacian, but instead choosing to switch out the Incineroar and bring in Rillaboom onto his side of the field.
Yeah, and at this point, Chien is so free to just go for that pivot, protect, play, as we've just seen right now, because having the Zacian in the position where you just want to go and pick up KOs right now is what is important to Chien's side to try to lock up that game 2 win. As the Rillaboom could even switch out right now to the Incineroar, whether via the U-turn or the hard switch, or even just go for fake out, try to pick up a KO on Incineroar, since it will be guaranteeing it, as close combat is preferred on Chien's side rather than a Sacred Sword that we've been seeing more often in the previous meta.
Yeah, and you know, nice way to close out the game. It doesn't matter if Rillaboom comes in and gets knocked out because Incineroar's in the back, so you always got to fake out this turn regardless of how that happened. And wow, that Incineroar didn't get knocked out by the close combat, so really well played there from Felipe, really well trained. You see that super berry coming out, whichever one it is, and followed up by a flare blitz. Oh, he's going into the Rillaboom.
Oh, no.
So unfortunate, maybe expecting the Zacian to come out and pivot round and catch it on the switchback. But yeah, no joy there from Felipe. Really liked what he was going for there, but no joy, unfortunately. That Zacian not being able to pick up the knockout, though.
Well, yeah, we do, of course, we did forget the Intimidate drops over time. The Zacian has not switched out. It only switched out that one time, and then when it came in again, it was just going for close combat, and I think it did, of course, get that Intimidate drop incurred onto it. And that Incineroar, though, does seem to be quite bulky in its physical defense. Maybe in anticipation of any Mienchaos, perhaps, if it can somehow survive that. But at this point, Chien has all of the pressure then.
It certainly does, and another fake out coming out here onto the Rillaboom, just stopping all of those sort of grassy glides. Close combat coming into the Incineroar is enough to pick up the knockout this time. So, you know, that Zacian's now at, what, 4 stages of decreased defense and special defense. So,
yeah,
Rillaboom would be able to do some quite good damage, but unfortunately, for Felipe, the grassy terrain is not on the field anymore, and of course, that means that Grassy Glide won't be going first. Chien has the opportunity to just go for 2 attacks on this turn and really just keep doing damage to that Rillaboom. It's going to have to choose which target it goes for, but unlikely that it's going to be able to take at least 3 attacks from anything on Chien's side of the field.
Well, yeah, unfortunately for Felipe's side, they just don't have the resources at this point. All of the resources have just been depleted, essentially. Woodhammer comes out, doesn't pick up the KO. It really is missing that grass terrain there to try to do anything. But then again, the Zacian always does run this win out, essentially, for Chien's side. As we do see the Flare Blitz locking up the game and the win for Chien right there versus Felipe.
Yeah, you know, I like the adjustment that Felipe made in that match, and not bringing Lunala to the second game after it got so handily knocked out by the Incineroar. And of course, you know, once you know that there's a Galarian Moltres and an Incineroar with a Dark-type move, certainly a Dark-type move other than Snarl that probably wouldn't be as threatening to the Lunala, you kind of think, well, I'm not going to take it because it's just a liability at that point. Even if the Moongeist beams and the Meteor beams are so strong, you have to do that through all of these Dark-type threats, and that's really difficult to achieve. So I like that adjustment from Felipe, but it just wasn't quite enough, and Chien definitely just played so well, pivoted really well, and pinned Felipe in these positions where, you know, when that Regieleki went down, it was either the Regieleki or the Incineroar that was going to get knocked out, and that was pretty much guaranteed, and there was nothing that Felipe could have done in that position. So really like how Chien played that game and maneuvered, but props to Felipe for playing such a great set and adjusting so well.
Of course, definitely props to both players. Of course, that does mean Taiwan is in the lead versus Colombia 1-0. That was the first match that has, of course, been updated onto the website or just streamed essentially. So very exciting. Taiwan's going to try to go ahead and try to seal the deal as best as they can. They've got all the matches to come up for the remaining 7. So it could go either way, ladies and gents. Once again, big shout outs to our sponsors, El Gato, just for all of their help and being able to go ahead and show off their very cool, let's say, microphone Wave 3 here, ladies and gents. Just going to put that out there. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back very shortly and catch you in a bit.